I have arrived. Good to see you, beautiful people. I know we're a little bit chippy. Give it some time. It'll straighten itself out. Don't worry about it after that. Good to see all you beautiful people here. I am doing an Ask Me Anything. So I'm going to be here, I think, for an hour. And if you guys would be so inclined, if you have some questions for me to answer, I will try to answer them for you, inshallah, as soon as my bitrate gets fixed here. And we can take off after that. Literally anything is up for discussion. Obviously, we have the Joy Taylor situation. I am not going to get into the whole... Anyway, I'm not going to say nothing about nothing. If you want to talk about Joy Taylor, we can do that. If you want to talk about how this relates to men and women and their sexual proclivities and the hypocrisy that still is rampant, obviously, we can get into that. If you guys want to ask me dumb questions about Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, we can do that. All the other craziness. Vin, CISO in this bitch. What's up, baby? Good to see you. Hunter Lewis in this bitch. Good to see you, buddy. I got a question. When are we working on them tracks, nigga? Yeah, man. As you guys might have surmised, I got a couple things here to take care of. But yeah, man, like I've been itching to get into the studio for real. Sean says, what do you think about the satanic panic in the 70s through the 90s? Well, I lived, obviously not the 70s, but being a 90s kid, I lived through it, and I lived on the other side of it. I didn't know that it was a panic. I mean, I remember, we went to this Pentecostal church, and I don't know if you guys understand how denominations in Christianity, especially American Christianity, works. But the Pentecostals, and I'm not disrespecting them, because a lot of my foundational understandings of things comes from those guys. But Pentecostalism, I think one of its greatest strengths is that Pentecostalism still believes in the magical stuff, still believes that God heals people, still believes in the power of prayer, things like that. And I actually view that as a positive thing. It becomes negative when the belief in the supernatural or the belief in magic doesn't get combined with any sort of rationality or skepticism. A lot of people don't understand this, but the Bible refuses to choose between the two. There's a very famous passage. It says, do not treat prophecies with contempt. And then he says, get rid of what's dumb, but hold fast to that which is true. And so there you have kind of the balance between the supernatural and the natural. You're told, don't hold prophecies with contempt, meaning somebody comes up to you and says, God told me something about you. You're not automatically supposed to dismiss it if you're a Christian. And then it says, reject what is evil, hold fast to that which is good. Well, how do you discern between bad and good? You obviously have to engage your mental faculties. And so you've got both sides of that coin in the scripture. The problem with Pentecostalism is that there's a lot about the supernaturalism and not a lot about the rationality and the skepticism. And so because of that, you have these roving preachers who go around, in cycles, and they're going to create a revival. And they start talking, and they start giving prophetic words, and they start doing XYZ, and people go, oh man, well, he was right about this. That means he's right about everything. No, you're supposed to test everything that the man says. And so these dudes are going around, and I remember, like, at the time, I'm a kid, I'm a black kid, I listened to pop and hip hop, so I The shit that the white boys were doing, banging their heads, the hair, all type of shit, like, it's not something that, like, my mom had to worry about as far as, like, influencing me, she thought. And so these guys were saying the craziest stuff about these people. And I remember them talking about the long hair, but I also remember them talking about Ouija boards and playing cards and all this stuff. And then Dungeons of Dragons. and Dragons was like the big thing. They were like, yo, if your kid plays Dungeons and Dragons, he's going to sell his life to Beelzebub. I think it turned out that the guy that actually invented Dungeons and Dragons was a Christian, I think, which is really ironic. But yeah, so I don't know if this answers your question, but I kind of grew up in that context. I always, I was confused about how a board game like Dungeons and Dragons, which it's not a board game, but what, you know, that's how much I knew. I was confused at the correlation between playing that and Satan entering into your system, but I never really questioned it because I was like, well, the adults, you know, must know something I don't. But that's all the shit that the white boys are doing, so who cares? And that was it. It wasn't until I started the channel that the fallout of the Satanic Panic was explicated, and like, you know, I'm listening to these, you're listening to these songs, and you got these bands that are out there burning churches, and you're like, yo, man, what the fuck, what's wrong with these people? I mean, that's one of them. We ruined lives all across the country, and of course people are talking about like, oh, these kids got set up in prison and all the rest of it, and that's horrible. But there's also kids who were misunderstood, who needed music to get through the day. I remember I needed Korn to get through high school, man. And that's not going to show up in a stat sheet about the Satanic Panic when the kid's in his room and he just needs a little bit of Metallica to chill out so he doesn't shoot everybody. And now that Metallica, you know, Ride the Lightning is now at the top of some pile in the middle of the town square getting set on fire. There's no like stats about that, right? Like, we're gonna focus on the people who like lost their liberty, absolutely. But I just think that the damage done by the Satanic Panic is actually, you know, by definition, incalculable. And so a lot of destroyed families, a lot of isolated kids, a lot of kids self-harming, most likely suicide, that none of that needed to happen if we would have just applied some discernment as Christians. And the other side of that, I'm kind of answering this question in long form. The other side of that, people have to understand that these roving preachers, it was an extremely lucrative industry. And much like with what's happening now when you have a 24/7 news cycle, what is it about what your news company is saying that's different from what the other news company is saying? You guys are all reporting on the same event, and that's where you get people start embellishing and adding their opinions and adding their personality so that there can be some sort of differentiation between you and the competitor. And look, if you're a traveling preacher, that's a very lucrative industry. This is before social media, and so this never gets talked about. But the Satanic Panic, I'm sure, generated hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars for these guys, because if one preacher has a successful little tour preaching against the evils of that stuff, then you know you're a good capitalist. You know what's going to happen. People are going to go and replicate it and jump on it, and they want the big crowd, and obviously the negativity and the fear is going to generate a big crowd, and with the big crowd comes a big offering and a lot of money. I almost never hear that get talked about, but honestly, the main purveyors of the Satanic Panic were a lot of these roving preachers, and really, they could be the only ones, right? Because it's very hard to call Bobby next door, who you've grown up with, who, you know, as an adult you changed their diaper. It's very, very hard to know somebody like that and then get in the pulpit and say, that guy's worshiping the devil. But it's very, very easy if you're going from city to city to city to talk shit about Bobby because you've never met him. And now you've got these poor, you know, God bless him, but you've got these not very well educated in scripture or psychology people sitting there getting terrified. And obviously the guy up front, he's just giving it to you straight. And the reason that your local pastor isn't telling you this is because he's either dumb or he's compromising. No, it's because he knows Bobby and he knows what Bobby's going through. So the local guy is not going to go shit talk Bobby. But when you have a guy that's traveling all over the place and he's famous or whatever, there's nobody that can hold him accountable, and he can go and condemn Bobby and all the rest of them. Yeah, definitely the 700 Club. I agree. The only thing I'll say about the 700 Club is that with my mom, it was the roving preacher had a lot more vested authority than the 700 Club did. To the minds of a lot of Pentecostals. Like, you could disagree with Pat Robertson. A lot of people did, especially toward the end of his life. But you really could not disagree with the traveling pastor. And when these guys did revivals, you're talking about touching damn near close to 100,000 people, in one of those tours. And then those people got kids. You see what I'm saying? And so, yeah, there was a lot of real damage that was done. And I believe was probably done generationally. And there's no way to really qualify that in any way that would reflect a just resolution to that injustice. The only thing that you can do is to try to learn from it. I think social media today makes it very, very hard for something like that to happen again, because everything you say is going to get put on the internet and then immediately fact checked. But yeah, those are really dirty times. Really, really dirty times. Did you see, shout out to the Wacky Tour, big homie. Hey Vin, did you see the documentary called Dreamer Deceiver where Judas Priest were accused of subliminal lyrics to make kids unalive themselves? Luckily the case was dropped. Yeah, I mean, I think the Painkiller record came out after that, and it's I'm not going to say that music doesn't influence people. When I was about to do some real dirt in the Bronx, like, I had a certain soundtrack, I had a certain group that I listened to that put me in a sort of state of mind. But that was because I didn't have a father. Those voices became prominent to me because I didn't have any other male voice to belie that, right? And so when you think about it from that vantage point, you can say that the music influenced a kid to kill himself, but the question is, how did that happen under your roof? And that's a hard question to ask parents, and that's one of the reasons why in certain conversations, when they're like, if your kid doesn't do this, they're going to kill themselves, it's horrible, because at that point, as a parent, you will do any and everything if you truly believe that, your kid's going to do that. So, yeah, man, it was a real, we always want somebody to blame. My brother died recently. And, yeah, I mean, I can't say much, but, yeah. But, people have the instinct to, find someone to blame and then, execute God's justice on those people, so that's what it looked like to me from my vantage point. I don't know how well that answered your question, but, yeah. What are your thoughts on the debate between Muhammad Hijab and William Lane Craig, and the debate between Daniel Ijaz and Sam Shamoun or Jay Dyer on Islam versus Christianity? Adam Salam. Yeah, I actually had a debate with Ijaz about 2 years ago, and my wife said, "Who's doing the recording?" And I said, "Oh, he's got it, don't worry about it." We went for 2.5 hours, and Mr. Ijaz did not do very well in that discussion. A couple days later, I said, "Hey man, you got that file?" Suffice it to say, I never got the file from him. That debate is gone and disappeared into the ether, never to be seen again. Ijaz was part of a Dawah group or Islamic outreach group that honestly trafficked in dishonesty. I mean, I saw it straight to my face. The reason that he deleted that video was because he got exposed a bunch of times for being massively dishonest. And so I don't have any time for Ijaz at all. On top of that, you know, he threatened somebody one time in a chat, and, you know, I had to reach out to one of his friends and say, listen, man, like, I follow Jesus the best of my ability. But make sure your boy understands never to threaten me. Because he never said it to me. But, you know. So anyway, I could get into more, but I think that group of apologists has a real character issue. I mean, they're split apart now. Like, obviously, Hikikachu and Jake are going at it online. It's insane. Ijaz is pretty much faded into the ether. I mean, he, you know, so obviously, I don't have a lot of respect for Ijaz. Jay Dyer on Islam versus Christianity. I think Jay is really, really good. I saw a couple of his debates, and in my view, they were pretty one-sided, but I'm a Christian, so what are you going to say to that? And then Muhammad Ajad and William Lane Craig. I like the way that Muhammad Hijab defends Islam better than the way that William Lane Craig defends Christianity. And I'll just say it that way. Let me see. Satanic Panic. Here's my question. Why are you guys charging hundreds of dollars just to listen to a struggling artist song on your channel? Thank you. Really are a true Christian in all its greediness. Well, Foxlawn Fawn, I appreciate the question. The people who spend the money there on those things don't necessarily perceive it as greedy. I don't know what you believe that greed is, so I think that would be interesting. Furthermore, the vast majority of the bands that we cover are not struggling artists. They're artists who've made it, as evidenced by the fact that 99% of the music that we review is all copyrighted, meaning we don't get the copyright. What happens is when your stuff gets copyrighted, the record label says, you use more than 30 seconds of our song, so all the money that you would have made here, we're taking it. So I don't feel particularly bad for the quote starving artists. Some of those starving artists are my friends, and I appreciate that. So I don't know how that answers your question, but I'll put it out there for everybody to see. Good question. And then he says, you are full of yourselves. Well, that's very possible. The scripture says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so if you say I'm full of myself, you're hundreds of miles away from me, wherever you are. You obviously don't know me. But it's very possible that God sent you to say, hey, check your heart. Maybe I am too full of myself. That's very, very possible. So I appreciate that. Yeah, Larry, I know you've had losses too, bro. So, you know, kind of draw strength from everybody who's kind of been through it before. So, is it okay to listen to secular worldly music? You know, I'm supposed to give a very easy cookie cutter answer to that because the channel is 99% secular music. Jesus said a tree is defined by its fruits. And so you have to, within yourself, try to figure out what kind of fruit comes out of listening to that music. As I said, there are certain groups that when we were in the middle of bad situations, I would listen to get myself in a certain mindset to do certain things. And to this day, when I hear this particular group, like, I go back there. Obviously, that's not good for me. Listening to a song like Got the Life, which is my favorite song of all time, he says, God paged me. This is a chorus. He'll never see the life he wants to see. And God told me I've already got the life. Oh, I see. So it's like that song's kind of been the theme of my life. Like, whatever you get in this world, you're not going to be happy with aside from Jesus. And God can give you everything, just like he gave Jonathan Davis everything, and say, here, it's yours. And then he resented it, and that's where Got the Life came out of. And so that song has been, ever since I heard it at Woodstock 99, that song has kind of been definitional in my life. Like, no matter where I go, how many subs you get on YouTube, how much money you make, how your business is doing, you're never going to be happy unless God's at the center. And so a tree is defined by its fruits. So that's how I'd answer, or try to answer that question. What's up, Vinny? Hey, Jet in this bitch. Don't forget your salah. Inshallah, I'll never forget my salah, buddy. I appreciate you encouraging me, though. MashaAllah, tabaraka. What are your... Oh, so I already answered Adam's question. See if I missed anybody. Documentary, yeah. Korn was my third most listened to band in 2024. Nice. Was it a specific record, or was it just Korn in general? I've been feeling really distant from God, trying to get back right, but I'm just really struggling this time around. I know the feeling, my brother. These are trying times. These are trying times for sure. Dear listener, you'll have to excuse the lagginess if you see a lag. It should work itself out, inshallah. Yeah, man. What, you know, the scripture says that he knows that we're dust. He understands the hardship we're all going to and how hard it is to get to him. And as long as we keep God conscious, he's going to come through for you. I promise you that. Vin, did you see my question? No, repeat it again. Oh, life is peachy. Okay, yeah, life is peachy. I remember my family, because all I had at the time was Follow the Leader. I had Follow the Leader in Issues. So my first Korn record that I bought, and like to this day, like I almost get choked up. Like I remember getting it. I remember being on the train, and it was a tape. Okay, I was too broke to even have a CD player, but I remember being on the train with it and opening it and looking at it all. It's like, man, it's crazy. And my family was like, oh, it's devil music, blah blah blah. But then for Christmas, my big bro got me Life is Peachy. So love my family, man. Kai in this bitch. Are you on X as well? Yes, I am on X as well. What do you think about death before the fall from an evolutionary standpoint, theistic evolutionary standpoint? I have so many thoughts. This is really an hour and a half answer, but I'm going to have mercy on the rest of the group. So God shows to Adam and Eve, he says, look, you guys can have this tree, do whatever you want with it, but this tree, don't do it, because the day you eat of it, you will surely die. I was just having this conversation in the Bible Boogie as well as with stories, like where people believe that Adam and Eve are presented as being like a complete blank slate. It's like they were like newborn children, and the narrative actually doesn't suggest that. And so here's the argument that the BioLogos folks use. They say, listen, God told Adam and Eve, if you eat of the tree, you will die. If they didn't have an understanding of death prior to the fall, then what God said would be gobbledygook to them. They'd have no idea. And so the argument is they obviously must have seen things die in order for God to use that as a reference point. I don't think that is necessarily true. You do not have to know experientially a concept for you to know that concept should be avoided. I have never tried heroin, but I don't need to experience heroin to know that I need to avoid it. And so there's that. The other thing is that Paul connects not only human death but the second principle of thermodynamics itself, entropy itself, to the sin of Adam. And so how that gets harmonized, there's lots of ways to harmonize that. God's being outside of time, and so you can also say, look, we are a direct special creation. Evolution was there for everything else, and so you could say that God only meant for death and all those things to happen, via evolution, but human beings were going to be an exception to that rule. That could be the argument. And then they'd say, look, why would there need to be a tree of life if Adam was already immortal? Good question. That would seem to imply that he wasn't already immortal. And so both sides, in my view, have lexical and scientific merit to what they're saying. Good question. The LA fires have polluted the whole country with smoke. It's tough to be outside. Yeah, man. The thing that gets me about that whole situation, and this is a country we live in, but all of us, I think, have very little pity for celebrities. But living in that area means that you worked very, very, very hard, at least to some degree. And there's some people that worked very hard to live there, and now it's all ash. Me personally, I moved around all the time, so the emotional ramification of your house and the memories that you have in the house, I can't really relate to that. But conceptually, I could see how that's a pretty horrible reality. People, it's not good to be materialistic, but we don't want to be Gnostic either. You live in a physical world, and so to lose your house and all that investment and things like that, especially now that you hear it's either relative to just absolute incompetence. I guess the mayor is out in Ghana, right? Ghana? I'm a lover of my people, but you're an American mayor. Your country, your city's in crisis, and you're in Ghana. I don't have the time for that, man. I don't have the time for it. I love Africa. I love black people, obviously, but we're Americans, and at minimum, what you do as a leader is you say, I'm going to go and suffer with my people. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to suffer with your people. So yeah, prayers for them, man. Prayers for them. Appreciate you a lot for your words of encouragement. Well, I appreciate your honesty, man. There's a lot of us here can't be honest. You know what I'm saying? All of us are struggling one way or another. I don't know how anybody, in the current climate we're in, especially after the election, I have no idea how y'all ain't struggling. I'm struggling like you wouldn't believe. So, yeah, man, I'm with it. I can tell you from living in LA, the character of that city has a lot to do with the people who work very hard behind the camera, people who are not famous and not pretentious. That's what I'm saying. Not everybody's a multi-quadrillionaire. LA is full of people who had massive dreams, and if you're one of the small people that is blessed enough to make it, you quickly realize that, these high bankrolls really don't change a lot as far as quality of life because of, location and costs and things of that nature. So those people losing that, man, it's got to hurt. You know what I'm saying? That's got to really screw somebody up for sure. Yeah, XPM, I think Adam and Eve were only immortal so long as they were in the presence of God in some sort of spiritual sense. He never left them, but obviously something changed. No, that's what I'm saying. Agree 100%. Agree 100%. Hopefully I didn't miss any of these questions. I don't think the Fox lady or dude was expecting me to say, yeah, we this is kind of what we do for a living, bruh. We had a let's see, Jason, hey brother, sounds like we're getting getting serious tonight. Horrible what's going down in LA. Hey, man, it didn't ask me anything. We can get serious. We can joke. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? I'm just hanging out with my people. You feel me? So, yeah, man, questions welcome for sure. It did get a little serious. We're talking about our friends in LA. It seems like, I think it was Australia or New Zealand, had a terrible, terrible fire, killed a lot of animals, man, and the pictures were horrific. It was animals and stuff, but it was a horrific picture, man. So again, like, I don't know where the line is between politicizing an issue and calling something out so it doesn't happen again, but like the mismanagement, really, to me, of California is it's disheartening, man. You know what I'm saying? Have you gone over the difference between biblical, civil, ceremonial, and moral law? Yeah, we did an extensive deep dive into the many reasons for the law in our Bible boogies. If somebody asks me a question about that, I'll answer it. But yeah, we've done that. How do you feel? How do you feel about Jack Chick and his Chick Tracts? He seemed to hate Catholics and Jews. Don't forget the Muslims. Jack Chick comes from a Protestant tradition, fundamentalist Protestant tradition. And in fundamentalist Protestantism, it's extremely sectarian, KJV only, 1611, and they have an understanding that as the world gets closer and closer to the end, there'll only be like 5 Christians left. And so it gives them the mentality that we're the only true faithful ones and all the rest of it. Now, what I will say is that when I was far away from God, I used to love reading the Chick Tracts because, they were in cartoon forms and things like that. And some of it was crazy. Some of his stuff was crazy, and some of his stuff was like, like, for example, and this will merge with the Satanic Panic thing. There's one where, like, these kids, and they're in a rock band, and then, but they're Christians, right? And then they get signed with a big record label, and the head of the record label, his name is Lucy Fur, and basically the kid signs his soul away to the devil, and then they're going along their life or whatever, and the kid is getting tormented by demons. So he goes to a Catholic priest and says, hey, I sold my soul to the devil, so, I'm getting tormented now, can you help me? And the priest looks at him and says, man, you're fucked, bro, because who sells himself to the devil? Get out of here. So the kid's walking out, and he's really dejected, and then he runs into a guy with a KJV Bible in his arm, and the guy drops the gospel on him, and the kid says, man, I wish I could believe that, but I sold my soul to the devil, there's no turning back. And the Christian goes, no, actually, you can't sell your soul to the devil because, you have no right to give it away. And the kid repents, turns to Christ, right? So then you end up in the judgment day, and the kid is like looking down and saying, I'm sorry, I sold myself to you, blah, 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 blah. And then the next scene, you see the priest who told the kid he had no hope. God sends him to hell because, you're a Catholic, get out of here. And then he says to the kid, thank you for choosing me, whatever. So my point is, yeah, he had a dig at Catholicism, but that track really stuck with me because it was like, even if you sell your soul to the devil, God can still get you. The devil doesn't have that kind of jurisdiction, and neither do I. So would I recommend Chick Tracts today? It depends on the context that I'm in. It depends on the context that I'm in. But yeah, they had a very, very simple view. I'm pretty sure one time there was a tract about intermarriage as well. So yeah, but that's my take. That's my take on the Chick Tracts. Hey, I'm a Christian that leans more Catholic. Just wanted to say for any Christians that waver in their faith to remember that the life of Jesus is a miracle in history. There's no one like him in history. Absolutely. He came at the exact right time, absolutely, at the height of the Roman Empire, and delivered the perfect message to humanity in his sacrifice. He converted the world with a piece of bread. It's a miracle, in my opinion. No, broker, that's not your opinion. That is absolutely a miracle. Absolutely. And resurrection, of course, which people died believing in. Amen. Amen. It's hard for me to care about rich celebrities' homes when they have millions in their banks and will have a new home within a week. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't have much pity for the A-list Hollywood stars, but not everybody in LA is one of those guys. What I would love is if these Hollywood people do for their neighbors what non-Hollywood people do for their neighbors when they don't have health insurance and the kid needs his leukemia treatments. Right? When that happens, regular people who are not quadrillionaires jump on the GoFundMe and they say, instead of going to the movies tonight, we're going to donate for this kid's leukemia. And so, with all the concentrated capital that is in Hollywood, it would be great if those actors and actresses could take care of the people that have made them look good, that have shot behind the camera and all the rest of it. If you look at the per capita, generosity, and I'm not on some eat the rich shit or anything like that, but I'm saying, like, you have regular people working 2 or 3 jobs that will do this for their neighbors that they don't even know, that have no real correlation to their own success. You guys probably have $1 billion, $2 billion over there. You can make stuff right. And a lot of these, again, no disrespect to the Hollywood guy, but a lot of these guys are talk about left-wing ideals and the little guy and all the rest of it. Well, now's an opportunity to come through for the little guy. I really don't get this genetic preference some people seem to have. My family's from Canada and Mexico, and I don't know anything else. To me, I'm just an American. Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: the term "just" as an American, it's an honor and privilege to be an American. It really, really is. We're an imperfect country, but if the ship's going down, I'm going down with the ship, because y'all are here. It's that simple. I love my country. I hate what my country does to other innocent, beautiful people. But at the end of the day, I love this country. And my family's proven it. Say it that way. Is it possible that the Mount of Transfiguration scene when Jesus is met with Moses and Elijah was actually John the Baptist who'd just been killed and Christ was speaking metaphorically? No, I don't think so. I don't think that that's what happened. I think what happened is pretty straightforward. Do you believe that the earth as described, or do you believe in the biblical explanation? Also, do you believe the earth is billions of years old or thousands of years old, lining up with the biblical years? Well, the Bible doesn't tell us that the earth is only thousands of years old. People make those calculations because of the genealogy in Genesis 5. And they interpret that to mean these are all the people in world history from that point till then. If you look at the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew, you will see that there were whole groups and families of people that Matthew left out. And if you get to the end of Matthew, he basically says to the effect of, thus you have 7 generations to lead to Christ, and the numerology of the number 7, right? And so it's a mistake. And by the way, if you go to the early church, you will not find a single church father who interpreted Genesis 5 to mean that the earth is only thousands of years old. This is another question that would take me an hour and a half to answer if I was to answer it thoroughly. I believe there's a sense in which the universe is 14.6 or 20.6 billion years old. And I also believe there's a sense in which the universe is 1 day old. So how do I do this? Easiest way to look at it is to say, God makes Adam as a man. He's called a man. He's never called a child, not once. You bring a scientist into the Garden of Eden. You say, how old is that guy? They're going to say, he's 33, 34. Reality is born in a day. But as things stand now, a 1-day-old person and a 33-year-old person have a vast difference, right? And so what if that's what's going on with the quote age of the earth, right? Is that we are assuming uniformity. So I am assuming with this man in front of me named Adam, I'm assuming that his coming into being and the laws and the rules of gravity, inertia, and all the rest of it, all of those remain exactly the same from the moment he was created. And so because I have that assumption, I'm going to say he's not been around for a day, he's been around for 33 years. And obviously there's a sense in which I'm right, because 99.9999999% of humanity is that way, but I would be wrong in that situation. And so I kind of use that analogy as kind of how I interpret and reconcile those things. If you really pin me to a corner, the Acts chapter 17 says, in him we live and move and have our being. And if you ask a Christian or religious person, what is God? You say, God is a spirit. You say, okay, what is a spirit? Well, a spirit is a unembodied intelligence that has a mind, will, and emotions. Okay, that's what God is. Okay, but how does that relate to the age of Adam and all the rest of it? You got to figure that out for yourself. Hey, Art, good to see you, buddy. John Lennox is amazing on this topic. Absolutely, absolutely, he is. Absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. California leadership is so dumb. Well, I don't know if it's dumb, but it seems to me that there's a disconnect between the constituency and the people and their elected officials. Like, there's a real solid disconnect that is weird to me. What do you think of the Fern and Audrey idea of possession? I'm not saying they're lying, but the idea that a kid was assaulted now gives some demon jurisdiction over them is sus to me. Yeah, I was really happy that they had, joined forces with Heiser so that he could kind of update and purify the theology. Paul makes an interesting statement in 1 Corinthians 7. He talks to a Christian woman, and he says, you can't divorce your husband because you're still in covenant with him, and even though he's not a Christian, your presence as a Christian sanctifies the whole family. And then Paul says, otherwise your children would be unclean. I think that what that says is 1 John, 5, he ends the letter, he says, little children, we are of God. And then he says, but the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. And so the easiest Fern and Audrey kind of theology that I would have with that would be to say, if a child is in a situation where both of his parents are serving demons, then obviously that's going to result in abuse on a child, right? The abuse itself, in my view, you cannot justify biblically that the abuse, the victimization of the child is what demonized it. But I do think you can make a case to say that if you have the spiritual head of that house is devoted to Satan, then he now has free reign over that house, and the kid became part of the collateral damage. I think that's a lot more biblical and rational than to say, you were completely fine and then you got assaulted by your gym teacher and now you're full of demons. I don't think that that's how it works. To me, that's a correlation causation fallacy. What's your opinion about the shape of the earth and the firmament? I'm an oblong sphere guy. I don't believe that. Well, I know for a fact that Moses is not writing scientific literature in Genesis 1, and there's a very important reason for that. I keep telling people. Western people are so arrogant, they want their categories and they don't ask other questions. I'm not talking about you. But let's say that God goes out there and gives us a real scientific methodology right from the beginning, right? Look what happened last century. Once we took the accumulated knowledge of the human family, we figured out how to split the atom, and you know the rest of that discussion, right? Genesis is not about trying to establish a scientific worldview. It's actually trying to do something higher than that. What it's trying to do is answer some real basic questions. Who is God? Who are we? What is a human being? Well, we know that a human being is in the image and likeness of God, Genesis 1:26. And what it means to be an image bearer of God is that you have dominion over the created order, and you stand side by side with your fellow man. Hence, Eve is taken out of Adam's side and called an image bearer of God herself. So that tells me, so here's the thing, has there ever been a century in the last 300-400 years where we have not targeted a specific group of people to kill wholesale? Imagine having all this scientific data without first having the anthropological data. Human beings are image bearers of God. And we in the human family still have not learned that lesson. And so God had way better things to deal with than correcting people's scientific flaws. So when you look up in the sky, it looks like the sun is moving. God doesn't go, oh, nope, that's not right. Because he doesn't care what you think about heliocentrism and geocentrism. All he cares about is somebody made that. So you don't worship that, you worship the one that made that. That's the concern. So when you have ancient people saying, the sun is running around, or when you have ancient people, making scientific errors, God is not going to go and correct them because there are bigger things at stake. That's my thought on it anyway. Did Adam grow back a rib? Well, the text never says rib, it actually says side. They took him out of his side, and that's temple language. But yeah. John Lennon is amazing on this. I bet he was, bruh. I bet John Lennon was. Yeah, man, you guys are asking great questions. Like I said, man, let's keep it going. Whatever you guys want, we'll continue. I'm sorry for being so chippy with my thingamajig. Eventually, it'll gotta restart my computer and clean a bunch of stuff. I don't think Enoch is canonical. I wish it was, but the connections that I see in Enoch and all the UAP stuff questions whether or not we need another classification instead of canon and non-canon. There are Ethiopian sects that have Enoch as inspired. I think a lot of the oral tradition in Enoch was actually truthful. I think God left it out of the Bible specifically because he doesn't want to give the bad guys too much glory. And Enoch goes into some pretty, stark detail about what these people did. Shemyaza and the rest of those boys. And I think God's like, I don't want to give you that kind of publicity. And so that's kind of how I look at it. Obviously, Jude makes reference to Enochian literature. Hebrews does. Jesus did all the time. And so I think that's the real reason. Like, when he introduces the devil, he doesn't call him a mighty seraph or whatever. He calls him a beast. The serpent was more subtle than all the beasts of the field. Roman mythology or Greek mythology, which seems more interesting to you? It's got to be the Greek. It's got to be the Greek. I remember with Clash of the Titans was the first time I was introduced to, these pantheons. And I was just blown away by it, like, because Zeus is up there. Because, like, the Christian God is like, he's up there, but he's like God, right? Zeus is more like a dude. He's like, yo, shorty looks really nice. Let me put on some, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I got to go with the Greek. So the UAP stuff, one of the things that's really interesting is that in the book of Enoch, the bad guys teach humanity the arts of war, for crafting and forging more technology. Secondly, they intermarried with human beings and created hybrid children. Okay, that's what the Enochian literature says. Now we're hearing about crash retrieval programs where we have, crashed UAP and they're working on reverse engineering it and all the rest of it. I just say to myself, I don't know, bro, if you're an alien from Alpha Centauri and you found a way to skip all that travel in light years and find a way to get back here, it's hard for me to conceive of the idea that you overcame all those forces and then you crash landed in New Mexico. That's hard for me to believe. The other side of it, though, is what if that's not the case? What if Gary Nolan calls them gifts? GIFTS. He says that these beings or whatever it is, they will just leave these craft there for Americans to go seize and then reverse engineer. They're a gift. And so when you look at the Enochian literature, it's like, okay, like they gave us technology for war. Okay, you all know that the DoD is right. If there is a retrieval program, the D&D is all up and down it because they're going to try to find a way literally to weaponize it. We all know that, right? So when you think about the Enochian literature, it is pretty crazy. It is pretty, and then also you have people, women who say they were abducted and then some sexuality happened and now they got a hybrid kid somewhere out there. So the parallels are very, 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 very interesting. I'm not gonna lie to you. What's up, AT? Good to see you, baby. I'm gonna be out in about 10 minutes. I was gonna give everybody an hour, so I gave everybody an hour. So people can keep asking questions for sure. You guys asking some good questions too. Some very good questions. The Watchers. Yeah. I think a very interesting case could be made that what we're dealing with that some sort of veil has been torn, maybe, and we're seeing interdimensional activity. Interesting stuff. What do you think about the Shroud of Turin? My son is a big Shroud of Turin guy. I'm not sure. For me, it's kind of like if God wanted us to have it, why didn't he just, have Jesus put it in his pocket and say, hey guys, before I go off to heaven, here's a Shroud of Turin for proof. I don't know. I'm ambivalent about it. It doesn't change anything for or against to me. And again, I'm a Protestant, so I'm actually a little paranoid about having this facial feature that I now correlate with Jesus, and now I'm praying to that instead of Jesus. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a little bit weird for me. Would hybrids between aliens and Iranians be trailers, and would they fly drones over New Jersey? I don't know. I don't think they're aliens. I do think that we're observing some sort of phenomena that we call spirit. Does seem to me that these beings can't act sexually without consent to some degree, although yeah, I agree. And if they made any deals with our government, then the government as a representative of the people in spiritual law can do that as well. So yeah, would not surprise me. After thinking the shroud was fake, I am now seeing some weird evidence that it might be real. Yeah, I mean, maybe I should. That's a good question about the shroud. Maybe I really need to look back into it because maybe I'm too lackadaisical about it. Maybe it's a big deal. Should we buy Greenland and call it Megaland? Obviously, as an American, I don't want to see my country forcing anybody to the table. But if we can find a way to get the Dutch to believe that it's better to just relinquish it to us, I have no problem with that. It would be one of the first times we expanded the empire in a bloodless fashion. So, I do think there's some key strategic points relative to China. China is the second highest stakeholder, aside from the Dutch and the Americans. So there's some chess moves and tit for tat there. What I don't understand is why everybody's acting like this is a crazy thing to do. I mean, is Greenland more of a challenge than, let's say, Alaska? I mean, I'm not exact. Some of this to me is like anything that dude wants to do, like folks are gonna get at him. You know what I'm saying? Like there's nothing this man can do that people aren't gonna find some offense to. To be part of the outrage machine. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. A great point. When are you going to release a censored Jimmy Dore interview? I didn't censor it. It's just we had technical difficulties, and there was a giant echo, and I just couldn't put it out. I'll never put it out. He named certain people, and at the time he was at war, and so I'll never release that now, probably. What's crazy about the shroud, from what I'm hearing, is that computer programs can frame by frame potentially show the movements of Jesus waking up in the shroud. Holy hell, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, man, get me some of that. I'm okay with the Greenland annexation, considering we do have genuine strategic interest in Arctic access and the rare minerals. I agree. I agree. I don't know. Like I said, if we can, in a bloodless fashion, do that, which would then give us a sort of edge over the Chinese, which we could then leverage to disincentivize them to go to war with us, I think that that's great. I don't know what Mr. Trump's designs are. I don't believe that Mr. Trump does everything only for the good of the country, but I do believe that he understands that if the country does well, that is commentary on his legacy, and so there's a nice kind of balance, I guess, with that. It's all about Arctic shipping lanes opening in the north. China and Russia are building fleets of icebreakers. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those situations where we can secure peace by feigning war, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's leverage talk, and we saw how leverage talk worked for the Canadians and the Mexicans. I'm just shocked that there are not Americans saying, okay, Mr. Trump, you were bringing up Greenland like 5-6 years ago. What are you seeing? I don't understand why we can't ask him that question. I think CNN, MSNBC, let him make his case to the American people. And because to this moment, I don't really exactly, like, I hear what people are saying here. I've gotten more education here than in what Trump was doing. So I don't really know the answer to that question. You know what I'm saying? Isn't it just funny how Trump triggers people? He can do anything and people get mad. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, and it's crazy because there was a clip that's going semi-viral at the not Kennedy, but the funeral for Jimmy Carter, and everybody's freaking out because Obama and Trump are sitting there side by side, like having a laugh. It's like, wait a second, you called this guy Hitler, a socialist, all type of craziness, and now y'all are sitting there chuckling in the middle of a funeral, sitting next to each other, pretty close, by the way, legs touching, all types of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, bro. That's a very interesting visual. Very interesting visual, and I think it really explains a lot. It explains a lot, yeah. It's the same thing that happened with Morning Joe. They were calling him a fascist. They were calling him Hitler. All the rest of it. As soon as he became president, you know what happened after that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's the thing that gets me with all this stuff, man. Like, I think it was Alex Rodriguez, and you know they had lost. It wasn't the World Series. They lost something. Yeah, they were going to go to the when the year they lost to the Red Sox, right? You know, that blew the 3-0 lead. 2 or 3 weeks later, you see A-Rod out on the town, big giant smile, and I think it was Colin Cowherd. He was like, "They're not looking at this the way you guys are looking at this." You know what I'm saying? Like, you are a bitter rival and you have all these principles for whatever, but they don't. When the season's over, they're all multimillionaires. They're all partying together. They wouldn't even want you in the room with them. And so it's kind of like, that was kind of like the vibe, man. It was like, oh, this dude was a fascist. He was this, he was that. Now he's fine, I guess. You're sitting there pleasantly laughing with Adolf Hitler. Like, I don't understand. But that tells me that you never believed any of that rhetoric. That's what it tells me. That means that you must not have really believed none of that stuff when you guys were saying that he was a fascist and all the rest of it. I mean, look, you can almost even excuse people sitting beside Hitler, right? Like during the Olympics, Jesse Owens went to shake his hand. You know why? Because there was no Hitler template. It's not like we could say, hey, that's just like Hitler. Like Hitler was the one, right? Well, now we can look back and say that guy's like Hitler. Oh, I'm sorry, Donald Trump does not act any way, shape, or form like Hitler. I'm sorry. Does he abuse his power? Tell me somebody who hasn't abused their power. Good night. I remember when I was in the... I ain't gonna share that story. On the other hand, the Canada annexation seems like trolling, but if Trump actually accomplished it, I will take back every bad word I've ever said about him. I want all my Anglo-Saxon kinfolk unite. Yeah. No, I see, the thing that gets me is like, you had Kennedy was like, yo, we're gonna go to the moon. Like, I understand, but like, he inspired the nation. Like, there was something aspirational, like, let's bring America to the next level, right? Like, so I'm like, okay, I'm excited. I'm like, whoa, Greenland, okay, what's the deal there? Like, what's going on? I do think it would be great if you know, the Canadians were somehow working with us. You know what I'm saying? So I don't... These are all, to me, like, literally earth-shattering stuff if he can get this stuff done. So, yeah, man, I'm just... have an open mind and let the man work. See what he does. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like I 5 minutes, guys, 5 minutes. Let me put that timer up there. I told you guys I was going to stay for an hour. It's now an hour and 7 minutes. So, you guys better be nice to me. Let me get this timer up here real quick. You guys are all you all got really ridiculously good questions, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. I am not gonna lie. Yeah, just put 10-minute mark up there. It's cool. Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast. Maybe I'll play it eventually. But the guy was basically like, Trump has to fail. We have to have him fail. And the lady said, she said, well, what does that look like? Like World War III, or people dying about diabetes again, or another pandemic? She's like, I can't even, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, well, he has to fail so that they understand, like, that he's bad. She's like, yeah, but if he succeeds, then... So are you saying that you want these people hurt to prove that you were right, that Trump was going to hurt them? So there's just a lot of... He scrambled a lot of people's brains, man. And I on his supporters and his detractors. I don't understand. I saw another stream where it was asked if you think Trump might be the Antichrist. In my opinion, if Hitler wasn't the Antichrist for mass murdering God's chosen people, then I highly doubt that Trump's worse. I don't think Hitler mass murdered God's chosen people, because I don't believe that the physical nation of Israel are God's chosen people. But yeah, it's cartoonish. I mean, honestly, to me, it's a dishonoring of all the people that died in the Holocaust or whatever to compare this man to Hitler. I think that's insulting. Like, we play fast and loose with a lot of words. Like, you use a term like hate. Somebody disagrees with you, it's hate. They don't agree with you. It doesn't mean they hate you. I got people I know that are very, like, anti-interracial dating. And forget marriage. I mean, I obviously disagree with them, but I mean, they're still my friends. You see what I'm saying? But could he be the Antichrist? If you look at the kinetic side of the Antichrist that people have, like he's killing hundreds and thousands of people, no. But if you emphasize the deceptive, aspect of the Antichrist, then in my opinion, Trump would be suspect number one. Because here's a guy who is blatantly immoral in certain aspects, and the Christian church completely overlooks it and goes with it, right? And so I'm not like trying to talk about specifically you're this or that if you voted for Trump because your country only gave you two options. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the mentality is what I'm talking about. Old Testament was recently proven true. FBI informants at the January 6th protests, some inside the Capitol before the protests. Yeah, let me... So there's this technique called herding, Herding. And in herding, what happens is, let's say, for example, that you're in Iraq, right? And there's a dude building IEDs, and you finally get the intelligence that it's this guy from this group, right? Guy's very hard, very elusive, and on top of that, he's got 5 or 6 other dudes that are working for him and working with him. But they're always in the midst of a crowd of 200-300 people. So what you do is you cause a disturbance, right? You cause a disturbance, and you say, we're gonna do some crazy shit to the Americans. And the idea is, all the main bad guy and his 5 little lackeys, they're gonna go at least to see what's going on. Most people, when you hear that, they're gonna turn in the opposite direction. So instead of doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo and going through a crowd of 500 people, you put an operative there, he creates that, and then you say, okay, that guy, all these people, the 5 or 6 guys has to be in this smaller group because they wouldn't go there otherwise, right? And so it's a tactic that you can use when you have dangerous elements in the middle of civilian elements, and you have to surgically remove one for the other. There was a real controversy in certain areas of theater where you almost had entrapment for these bomb makers. And so, like, it gets to the point where where it's like, hey, we're doing the herding principle. It's like, yeah, but this is a 7-year-old kid. Okay, so like, it's a 7-year-old kid. And these kids were getting blown up by IEDs and all the rest of it because, you know, we were herding, and then when they got herded, then we set a bomb off and all the rest of it. Turns out you didn't get anybody because whatever. Okay, so that's the concept. You have thousands of people at the Capitol. You have almost across all social media sites, Oath Keepers and all the rest of it pledging to do X, Y, Z. Pledging to spill their blood, spend their money, execute Nancy Pelosi, execute AOC. How do you identify those with the terrorist intentions over and against people just coming to see Trump talk? Well, you apply a herding mechanism. So you say, let's storm the Capitol building, and whoever goes with you, it's going to be the same principle, right? I could see why you're not going to talk about that particular tactic at the floor of the Senate. So you're just going to have to fall on the sword or jump into a skiff and have that discussion. But when people talk about January 6th, it appears to me that was a herding operation. And just like in Iraq and Syria and Libya, in my view, it went wrong. And I think that the debates within those communities as to the validity of... See, the problem is that herding is actually pretty effective, but it's only, in my view, only effective in the most austere, crazy conditions like a war. I think it was a miscalculation to send those guys to do that kind of exercise because there's so many people there, and there are very good logical explanations for why somebody would follow that person. It could be, yeah, maybe I'm a radical and you got me, but it could also be, holy shit, this guy's talking all types of crazy shit. I have no intention of going in there, and then now you've got innocent people getting jammed up along with genuinely bad guys. And so the government's like, well, this guy's a genuinely bad guy. But the public is saying, well, this guy had nothing to do with it. But you got him because you used a herd mechanism. And then, of course, there's the other issue of, like, why are we doing this to Americans? Like, but you know, these guys are between a rock and a hard place. And so, there you go. Yeah, they located 26, but I'm sure there were many, many more. Jimmy Dore's on the back. Yeah, like that. That to me is clearly what happened. There are other means and methodologies that could have been used, and you know, the folks who make those decisions, sometimes their emotions are right in the middle of it. How come Joe Biden's face is now skinny or shiny? Is it shiny or skinny? I don't know. I don't see the government saying, yeah, you know, this was a tactic that we used. This is a reason we used it, and blah, blah, blah. And then on top of that, our government has so much, you know, history relative to COINTELPRO. So it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not really much you could do. But I think Mr. Trump said that he's gonna pardon them dudes for the most part. So maybe all's well that ends well. But like I said, that's a real sloppy methodology to me. I think it assumes too much, and I think that, you know, I would be against that. You know, if I had a vote, I'd be like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work in this context. We are not in the austere conditions that an Iraqi 17-year-old is in. We're just not. And so when you're in those situations, you have a lot more to lose. And so you're not going to do anything that's going to compromise that. But at the same time, if you're an American, you're going to be curious. You're going to want to know what's going down. So, Yeah, that's how I look at it. But yeah, definitely, I think the government should come clean on it. You don't have to say, all right, this is a methodology. You morons don't know what you're talking about. You could say that if you want, but I don't resonate with the American people, nor should it. Say it that way. You know, you gotta take accountability. You gotta take accountability for your actions. And if you thought that methodology was the right methodology, and if you thought that you should be running a mini psych op on your own people, then okay, you know. But and then they turn around and say, why is there no trust in the government? I was like, you'd have to be a self-hating, abused person to still heed the government to that degree. That's why the FBI said they couldn't say if they had informants in front of the Congress. Yeah, they can't do that, you know, because that's going to lead to other questions, and then, you know, now we're going to have a different conversation about stuff, and you best believe that there are people that don't like us that want to hear that discussion. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's and I'm with the FBI for not blowing people's cover if, you know, they're still undercover. But the problem is the folks that you guys sent over there ended up functioning like provocateurs, and it got out of hand, right? Because, you know, in my view, it's like we should have been able to read the room. You don't have auxiliary forces to help you. You've got cops who are vastly outnumbered. You have a highly charged election with one of the most popular people on the face of the earth, who came into the country with violence at his rallies. How you thought that you were just going to herd just those people from a group of thousands and thousands of people is mind-boggling to me. It's crazy. And so from that perspective, I do think you should name names, because that should have been the end of their career. That's my opinion. You took a legitimate issue where, like, there are some people that should be, you know, arrested and all the rest of it, but you took it and you turned it into a public relations nightmare, and you've just now vindicated these people. You just gave them a gift. So that's kind of how I look at it. Time's up, can't hear you. Yeah. You can't hear me, you mind snake. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm big on accountability. I don't, you know, hey, it was definitely a bad thing to do, and you didn't execute well, and I understand the logic, but somebody has got to fall on that sword. Somebody's got to fall on that sword. But what happens is everybody's ego is so wrapped up into being right about these situations that nobody's gonna want to admit defeat, because, you know, that's not really American, is it, to admit defeat? But, you know, like it or not, that is what happened. The mob is an unlit fuse that gets lit very easily. I mean, when that was happening, like literally, like as January 6th was happening, like earlier in the day, I was talking to a villager. Me and this person were pretty close at the time. And like every day she was like, it's gonna happen. She was all on 4chan, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, sweetheart, how is that possible? How is it that you, in your basement or whatever the fuck, you have access to all this special information that the rest of the country doesn't? Does that make sense to you? My point is, you had a lot of turned up people The Pizzagate thing was going on. These guys, I mean, how you thought, there are other methods that can be used. How you thought that that was the right method to be used, especially considering 2020 was the year of the George Floyd uprising riots, whatever you want to call it. And honestly, like, if you pull back to the George Floyd riots, you know, I can almost make a case for these people saying, well, they got to do whatever they got to do, which is obviously not true. I mean, they were bashing people's heads in, shooting women with rubber bullets in the face. But the narrative is they got away with it. And so if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Right? Like, so there's that too. There's a whole bunch of it. But if you have a group of people who truly believe that we are trafficking children from an underground pizza shop, we better be happy that that's all those people did. So, yeah, but I think that I understand what they were trying to do, methodology-wise. I just think that we're gonna end the. I don't think we're gonna end that practice. I think that practice is gonna continue for quite some time, because all of us know that the government is not going to say, all right, guys, this is what's really happening, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to do that. They're not going to admit that to us. They're not going to talk to us about it. They're just going to keep it moving like nothing happened. Just like Rachel Maddow and MSNBC and the entire Russiagate saga. And she faced, in my view, zero consequences for what she did. And she lied. I'm not going to say she lied, but she definitely did not apply her standard journalistic integrity to engaging in that. But she did give us all a very entertaining presidency. I will say that. She definitely entertained the socks off of everybody. Manchester by the Sea. Let me find out. We did some Manchester by the Sea. Pizzagate was a psyop. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess, you know, I don't know, man. Pizzagate makes a mockery of child trafficking. Yeah, and we do have a serious problem with trafficking children, though. We really do. Like, we legitimately do. And I don't believe that we're kidnapping kids who get the endocrine or whatever. But I do think the Epstein thing shows us that these people, when they hit that ceiling of wealth and power, and it's no longer doing it for them, they start spilling over into all these taboo psychopathic behaviors because they got a bunch of time on their hands, and
Capital.
The Oscars and the Emmys and the Senate seat has lost its shine, and they have to go do something else. So these, in my view, are very unwell people. And so I don't want to, just because Pizzagate isn't real, we agree, but there are elements in our government that are extremely sick and that have terrible designs for children. I'll just say it that way. Hey guys, absolutely love your videos, firstly. Secondly, what are your thoughts on Anton LaVey's philosophy? Have you studied before? Yeah, so that's the Satanism stuff, the Satanic Bible. I don't see a lot of difference between Anton LaVey's grounding ethic and Ayn Rand. Self-empowerment, responsibility, all those kinds of things. And we're going to take Satan as the sort of prototype or the archetype of somebody who stands up to unjust power, even though they're massively overpowered. Honestly, I don't really take LaVey seriously as like an Aleister Crowley, for example, or a Nietzsche, for example. I wouldn't put LaVey at that level. I do think that he was extremely gifted at trolling people, which in the 80s, especially during the Satanic Panic, wasn't a very difficult thing to do. Oh, this is so terrible. Don't buy those anymore. God. And I can tell they don't care as much as they claim, because none of them mourned any of the deaths because they're all Trump supporters. Well, it's the first and only time I've ever seen Trump supporters mock the police or not be in complete lockstep with the police. I thought that was pretty telling. I'm like, wow, this is when MAGA entered into the fuck the police era. Well, come and welcome, MAGA. Come and welcome. A free mind to explore can be beautiful, but it's also horrendous. Yeah, I mean, look, your mind should function like your house or like your country. It is not always good to be open-minded. If I say, all right, you are welcome to come to my home anytime you want, you don't even need to knock. That's an agreement between myself and my brother, right? But if Jack shows up at my door, I do not have an open door policy for Jack. I'm like, Jack, what you on? Jack, hold on, let me check the sex offender registry. I got a bunch of kids in here. Jack, let me, right? Your mind should function that way. There are people who want to they want to move into your mind. And a lot of the proof of that is all the emphasis on speech, as in trying to curtail speech, because speech control is thought control. So I think people need to be very, 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 very careful with that stuff. It is not good to be open-minded to anything. I'm going to be minor attracted persons, maps. I am never going to open my mind to even an argument to justify that. I don't think you should either. I think that there are some issues where your mind should not be open. Your mind functions just like a house. If you have a complete open door policy, you're going to get bad actors in along with good actors. You should have you should put a guard in front of your mind to protect yourself and the people around you, lest you adopt a crazy idea and end up destroying everybody around you. Re Ashley Babbitt. Confederate General Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma is a key piece of satanic literature. Well, that doesn't surprise me. It does not surprise me. Yeah, so this whole thing where it's like be open-minded for open-mindedness' sake is a virtue. I don't think so. I don't think that's a virtue. I think that we've got to be extremely circumspect and wise about what we let into our mind. Because as Peterson said, it's not really clear whether we have ideas or ideas have us. And that's a pretty... You should focus on that for a little bit. Like, damn, that is true. Alright guys, I got one more question. And then I got to get out of here. Always remain skeptical in everything you don't follow, and more so everything you do. Yeah. I think that's one of the things where it's like, you have to know about yourself that there are things that you want to be true, and there are things that you want to be false. I don't spend a lot of time being an unbiased person. What I say is I can be converted. I have a bias on pretty much any given topic, but I can be converted. You can convert me if you've got data and information. And I think that that's that's what we need. But I'm waiting for one more question, guys. One more question, then I gotta jump out of here. Pizzagate distracted people from the Pato Epstein ring. Yeah, it did. It did. I think looking back at the Pizzagate thing, I think, you know, a lot of my friends who were in that situation felt the same way. All right, I think we are done with the questions. And my guy's getting a little chippy, so it's time to go anyway. Much love to all you beautiful people. Love your neighbor, take care of each other. Shout out to my man Adar. Adar, I'm leaving now. Sorry, buddy. But you can rewind it. As you guys can see here, I'm getting chippy already, so we're going to have to peace out as soon as this thing works. It doesn't work. The gods still want me here. Alright, well, I'll stay as long as I have to until this thing fixes itself. There we go.